Oh, I know, I've had it. When I hit that elk that time.
Mark the overachiever in the
And
room and
freaked us.
online.
I didn't realize.
He misses something. Comes back from vacation.
So we can't do that in the car. No fire. And said, hey,
No,
walking at Manuel, I said, I don't know how to do it. And I finally figured it out.
it ain't me.
But I was halfway in shock.
It is 6 o'clock. We'll go ahead and get started with the study session and we'll turn that over to Ms. Earp.
Thank you, Mayor Johnson, and good evening. We have with us tonight, we're going to go through the pavement rating study, and I'm going to turn it over to our Public Works Director, Mr. Herseg.
Good evening, council. Tonight, we're going to go over the 2023 ratings. This is the third time we've done it. The first rating we did in 2017, and then we updated in 2020, and then again in 2023. Most of you know Joel. He's done the rating since we started doing it, but for those of you who don't know him, I'll introduce Joel Conder from CAPS, and he'll go through a presentation for you, and then we'll answer questions afterwards.
Cool deal. Welcome aboard, sir. Pleasure to have you.
Well, thank you very much. Glad to be here. I'm going to go ahead and Mark, do they have a hard copy of this presentation?
They've got the report, but not the presentation.
Okay. Let's see if I can get this pulled up here and working. Sometimes this works and sometimes it doesn't.
Story of our lives.
Did it show up correctly?
No, sir.
Was that a yes?
No, sir.
Oh, it's not showing? Oh, interesting.
Is it because you have him on your screen, Mark?
It shouldn't be. I've got a backup copy if it doesn't pop up.
Yeah, it's a 50-50 thing. Sometimes this does and sometimes it doesn't. Let me try this again. And screen.
There we go.
We're making a movement there. Oh, it was too good to be true.
That's his Merry Christmas test.
We're seeing your desktop, sir.
There it is.
There it is.
There we go.
If you'll expand it.
All right, let's see here. Let's go back here. That should be slideshow and from beginning. Are we there?
Perfect.
All right. I love technology. Anyway, thank you. Yes, it's great to be here this evening. Like Mark said, I've been involved since the beginning with your pavement study, and I came up there about 6 years ago and built your original database. And we did the pavement study, like Mark said, in 17 and then again in 20. And then we just completed it here a few months ago. And the one thing I really noticed is just how much you guys are growing. So I was just kind of blown away. And there's going to be a couple of slides I'm going to show you here with a map of your city showing your pavement condition index and kind of give you an idea of the growth that you guys are going through and what your overall pavement condition is. So this will take about 10-15 minutes at the most to go through these slides. And then if you have any questions, just please holler out, or you can save them till the end, either one. So excuse me, a pavement management system. I think we all kind of know now, it's been around long enough. It's a computerized analysis budgeting tool. And it shows the effects of maintenance decisions before and after. That's the beauty of these things is you can put in there and say, okay, we're going to do this year, this year, and this year. What's it going to look like 5 years down the road? Did we get our best bang for our buck? So it's kind of a crystal ball type thing. So it's a really nice system for doing that. It really shows you also, as you look back over the last 5 or 6 years, what you've done. Are you doing the right thing? Are you increasing your pavement condition ratings, as you go along, or are you just kind of basically keeping the proverbial thumb in the dike and holding it together? So it's a great tool for doing all those kind of things and looking forward and backwards. You'll hear me use the acronym PCI tonight, the pavement condition index, and that's of course from 0 to 100, and 0 being a terrible road and 100 being a brand new road. Mark did the right thing by choosing the software Street Saver. It's used by 95% of the agencies on the West Coast. So it's the one everybody has. So a lot of times the League of Oregon Cities and the League of Washington Cities and the Association of Washington Counties and everybody, they can go to the legislature now and they're all using basically the same software. So that goes a long ways. So here's like the current pavement condition index is 72. That's a citywide index is 72. So you can see you have about 7 miles of arterials, 17 miles of collectors. So basically about 30% of your network are major roads, and the rest of it's obviously residential locals. As you guys know, that you have a lot of residential roads, so which means a lot of high maintenance. So it's broken down by your condition categories there. You say good, 61% of your roads are in good shape. 23% are in fair, 13% in poor, and only 1.9% is very poor. So less than 2 miles of your entire city is in very poor condition. So overall, a 72, I would give you guys an average score. Like I said, we work with hundreds of cities and counties all up and down the West Coast, and I would say a 72 is about like a C+. You're better than most, but you're fitting right in the middle there. So that should give you an idea of where you guys are at with all the other cities. So one thing that that is going to come true with you guys, you're growing so fast that probably 15 to 20 years down the road, you're going to have some significant needs come due all at once. So it's something you might want to be planning for today. This is a pavement deterioration curve. I'll go through this real quickly. I know some of you have heard this before. It's the pay me now or pay me later. Basically trying to keep your good roads in good conditions so they don't cycle down to where you can see where they're costing $1 million a lane mile to fix, where you can do it for less than 200,000 a lane mile right now. If you keep them in good condition, you apply your crack seals, your seal coats to them, and keep your good roads in good condition and don't let them cycle down. So, and you can see the drop off of pavement. That's kind of the life cycle of pavement right there. And so you get out there, if you're 15, 18 year age mark, it drops off really quick. So this is really kind of just like, hey guys, let's maintain our good roads right now. Let's not let them fail. We ran some scenarios. Mark gave us some budget numbers to work with, and we ran some budget scenarios for you guys. I think we ran 4 of them. The first one is called unconstrained needs, or the blank check theory. And so we let the system tell us what you guys need. And the software system tells us that the city of Battleground should be spending $22 million over 5 years. And to get your network in a good condition, because like I said earlier, if it's in good condition, it takes much less dollars to maintain it once you get it up into a good condition. And so the pavement management system is trying to push you guys up into the low 80s like that. So you spend less money annually to maintain your network. So in order to get there from 72, you need to spend about $4.5 million a year over the next 5 years to get there. So, and that increases your PCI 11 points. The next scenario we ran is your current investment level. And these are the numbers that Mark gave us. And so you're currently spending about 1.2 per year, or $6 million over this 5-year period. So you can see you're only spending about 25% of what the system is wanting you to spend. So, and that gets you to where you are today. You're 71, 72, you go up a little next year, you kind of hang out there, then you drop a little bit. So you're basically just kind of staying even at your current investment level. So, and we ran another scenario, and this was, okay, let's run a more realistic one, because we're not going to go from 1 million a year to 4 million a year. We all know that doesn't happen in the real world. So how about if we shoot for something a little bit smaller and just increase our PCI 5 points over the 5 years? And if you do that, then it's a $2 million investment, basically almost doubling your current investment level to get you there. And again, if you had a network PCI of 77, you would be in very good condition and better than most. So, and again, much easier to maintain your infrastructure when it's up that high. The last scenario we run is zero funding, and that's you put no money into the roads, and you can kind of see where you're going right there. If you do that. Now, those red numbers you're seeing right there, those are millions of dollars in deferred maintenance. So you can see that if you don't spend any money, you're gonna be $20 million behind the 8 ball here in a few years. So if we go back, with your increasing it to 2 million, your deferred maintenance is down there somewhere around 12 million. And if you look back at our current investment level, your deferred maintenance is going up every year. So you can see you're about $8.5 million today. That's going to be 16 million in 5 years. So this is just a way to look at it and let you guys know that you're definitely not spending enough money today, and your deferred maintenance is definitely going up. So, and here's your current pavement condition index. And you see those green roads, those are very good roads. And those are also, as you know, very new roads, because that's where all your new growth is in these last few years. So those are very good roads. And the blue roads are in good condition. They have a few cracks on them, maybe a little bit of weathering or raveling going on them, not too much going on there. And the yellow roads are in pretty good condition, but they're showing signs of load-related distresses. And those would be the garbage trucks, the school buses, and so forth like that. So they're showing some load-related distresses, which in Mark's world, that means you're kind of maintaining it differently. You can't just put seal coats over roads that are showing signs of load-related distresses. When you look at the orange and the red roads, those are roads that are in poor condition or very poor. If you have the red, it's obviously very poor. And you notice those are all, downtown in the core of the city, the older part of the city, the older streets. And that's where they're showing the most distress there. So that kind of just gives you a snapshot of your city and where the good roads and where the bad roads are. So, and a lot of times citizens like to see this because they like to look up their street and see where their street's at. So this scenario 1 is your unconstrained needs. Again, this is your blank check theory. You got all the money in the world. Let's fix all our streets. And this is what happens over 5 years. You can see all those red roads turn better. And most of the orange roads went away. And so it's kind of, okay, this would be wonderful if our city looked like this. And this is really like I said, the blank check. When we look at scenario number 2, this is your current funding. You see all those red roads are back and they're growing, and you're going to have more and more of those in a 5-year period at your current funding. Much more of those roads will turn orange and red. So, and that's really where your needs are at today, right there. And this is kind of what I was talking about earlier. Your green roads are still green. And after 5 years, they're still green because they're still so new. They're in the first 5, 10, 15 years of their life. But there's going to come a time about 15 to 20 years down the road where the city of Battleground is all those green roads are going to start deteriorating at the same time. So this is such a great way to get out in front of it and look at it and prepare for it. Scenario number 3, this was your PCI 5 points, and you can see you've still got your red roads in there. Most of the orange roads have gone away, and it looks a lot better. The last one, of course, this is zero funding, and you're getting a lot of yellow roads, and the orange has really grown. So this is be what happens if you decide to defer a lot of your street money for something else. And we have had clients do that. We're going to do this beautification project. We're going to do Main Street. We're going to take all our money and put it into Main Street. And when they do that, this is a way to look at it and say, wow, this is the impact if we do that. So we do have quite a few clients have taken all their money over a 2, 3, 4 year period and put it into one single project. So, and this is what it would look like. So now we have a couple of quick maps that are going to show you the scenarios. And this is going to tell you a chip seal, or are we going to crack and slurry seal it? Are we going to put a microsurface on it? Are we going to do a mill and fill, or what we call a grind and inlay? And it tells you all that we're going to pre-level it. We're going to chip seal it. We're going to fog seal it, whatever we're going to do. All the treatments are right there in that legend on the lower left. And this gives you an idea. This is based on unconstrained again, and this is the blank check theory. So let's look over to the next one. And this is really what you can afford to do based on your current funding. And this is what the program is telling Mark, that the city of Battleground, to get the best bang for their buck, this is what they should be doing. And this will get you the farthest you're going to get with your limited budget. And these are the streets selected. So, and you can see they're almost all arterials and collectors. You don't see a lot of residential streets in there. And the reason for that is they have a higher weighting value, and the program has a tendency to put more money towards those than local streets. So, and this is again, a wonderful map. It's something that's great to put on your city webpage because your citizens can look ahead into the future and go, okay, in the next 5 years, here's what's being treated. Here's what's being fixed. So this is your increase your PCI 5 points. That's just doubling your maintenance budget. And you can see how much more work you'd get done from going from 1 million to 2 million. You look at 1 million and you look at 2 million, and now we're really getting into those residential streets and we're able to take care of those local access streets. So it's huge, the difference between 1 million and 2 million for your city. If we look at the last one, the next one here, this is just a kind of a summary of all the things I've been talking about. So these are your unconstrained or your blank check and your current and your increase it and your zero funding. And it shows you here what condition, current percent of your conditions in good, fair, poor, all that kind of stuff, and your backlog. And you can really look at that backlog. And this is the one that really hits home here. And if you look at today, 15 million, and it's climbing to 20 million if you're not doing anything. But so, yeah, like I said, this one here, 15.7 million, it's $8 million today. It's almost going to double over the next 5 years. So a lot of your streets are really going to start aging out. So that's just kind of a snapshot of all of them. And with that, that's basically a snapshot of your current pavement condition.
Okie dokie. Well,
That's a lot to digest.
We always appreciate the good news.
Yeah.
Any questions for the gentleman? Yes, sir.
Well, this isn't necessarily a question for the gentleman, but for us, 4.5 million, I mean.
Hold on a minute. Will you go back to the budget screen, that one more? Nope, the number screen that was just there. That one. Thank you.
So if we look at that at 4.5 million, 22.5 million. Like, that's great over 5 years. What to get to that, Megan, this is for you, right? Everyone's looking at you right now. What would that take to get to $4.5 million? What would it take from council to get, that's obviously a policy decision, right? But to keep current staffing levels where we're at with all the other departments, this is impossible, right? To get to 4.5 million?
As the current revenue streams are right now, yes.
Okay.
So there's several options that council could consider. There's things like a levy lidlet. There'd be a specific type of levy for this. There's bonding, but then you have to obviously then debt service. I don't suggest that. Then there's the TBD sales tax. Right now we're at 0.1%. We could go all the way up to 0.3%, which would bring in 2.1 million about. Or some variation thereof. You guys did pass the 0.1% last year, which brings in about 700,000, depending upon economic conditions. We do have some reserve funding within the general fund that could be used. It may be possible to do that once. It would be tight. There would have to be, like I said, some potential cutbacks in other areas, which, like you said, you want to keep things stagnant, but other than doing an increase to property taxes or an increase to sales tax. Or even, I guess there's also utility tax too for water, sewer, and drainage. We could look at that as well.
So what I'm getting at though, for us and the two people that are listening, I think, which work for the city or on city council, but there's no way for us to accomplish this without some type of a tax increase. So whether it be the TBD increase and all of those are voted tax increases. And so the challenge that I see with that is we just saw with the lid lift for Fire District 3. If people don't want to pay for emergency services, the last thing they want to pay for is Northwest 20th when I don't live on Northwest 20th and I don't have to drive on Northwest 20th. So then my second question is,
let me.
Go ahead. Yeah.
Sir, Joel, if
Yes.
you would, if we did that and we went all in for 5 years, what would we be saving starting the 6th year?
Well, that's another scenario we would need to run because we have that ability within the program. We could dump that in and say, okay, they're all in, they got this. We're going to fix everything it's suggested. Now let's run a 10 and a 20, or we can run it even up to 30-year scenario and see what it would take to maintain it in the years following. That number would drop significantly. That number from where you're spending 1.2 million today would probably drop somewhere in that, without running it, but my best guess it'd be in that 300,000, 350,000 a year to maintain it at the most. And I'm using inflated dollars to give you that number. So
The reason I say that, if we had chosen back in 2017, back when things were relatively well priced,
right.
and gone in for 5 years and finished last year, we would be well under the 22.5 million projected for the next 5 years, of course.
Oh, yeah. Well, first of all, your needs would be zero today. So, yeah, and you just use your current budget moving forward to maintain it. And that was kind of that slide I was showing you earlier. If you get up to that 83 or 84 PCI, it's just so cheap to maintain it after that, because you're really doing basically a little bit of crack sealing and a few seal coats each year. So it's, yeah. So, and now some of our clients have actually done that, and they've gone out and got a bond, and the voters have passed it, and they went all in and fixed everything. And now they've maintained it. So if that's something that you guys would like to learn more about, we'd be glad to give you some of those examples and that you can talk to those agencies. So, and I know the laws are different from state to state, but across the river from you there in Wilsonville, Oregon, they went with a local gas tax, which I know isn't such a simple thing in Washington. So, but they fixed all their streets, and they used a street utility fee as well. And they went all in, fixed everything. And then they ended up suspending the fee because we had all the money we need. So today they don't hardly spend any money on their streets.
Thank you for letting me butt in.
No, that's fine. So if we were to go to we're at 1.2 currently, and that is 700, roughly 750,000, right, from TBD, and then another 500,000 from that we're putting in out of the general fund. If we were to go to the 2 million, what would that take from us right now? Would that be reserves again?
That would be reserves and or going out, like you said, for a vote for the sales tax to increase that, or property tax increase.
What is a 1% utility tax increase to the city?
For water, sewer and drainage?
Yeah. If we
I will
did
need
just
to
like
do
a
some
one, yeah,
figures.
if we just did 1%, what are we charging now? 10, 11,
12.
12? Okay, so if we went from 12 to 13, what is each percent? We used to be at 21 when you and I first started. We were at 21%.
City of Vancouver's at 29.
That would be about 40,000 from water. Probably about 50,000 from sewer, and then drainage would be less than that, probably around the 20,000 range.
So you're looking at about 100,000 per percent, roughly. Okay, so so to keep everything the way it is without using reserve funds, we would have to be back at basically 21% roughly and take the TBD and the 500,000 that we're putting into it right now. Okay, because I mean, I'm all for it. Like, it's like anything else. I mean, most people understand this, but most people don't want to understand it too. So this is the concerns they're going to have. The developers are screwing us. We hear that, developers aren't paying their share. Like, how come these roads are going bad? They should have to cover this stuff. Why should I have to cover, Southwest 20th when I don't use that road? And so those are all the things that are going to come up if we go out for any type of a vote to fix roads. They're going to say, you know, you guys did a fire annexation, did the largest tax increase in the history of the city. Where's that money? You know, no one pays attention to. Everyone sees it in their own homes. I mean, I heard it this morning on the news, how fuel and food are going up because of the heat that we're having in the southeast and the southwest, right? And so what it's costing to, you know, they see that when you go to the fuel pumps and you see that it's 30 cents more per gallon, but they, for some magical reason, governments should be going down. So we've got this access to pots of money and places, you know, the government Costco, where we're saving all this money that no one else is. But that's my concern is I think we need to be at the 2 million. I think we need to be at like 2.5 probably. I would love to do the 5 million and just get it done. At some point in time, you have to get this stuff done. All we're doing, if we do nothing or even stay where we're at, all we're doing is putting this on some other council. And so, you know, we have to figure out something, and I don't know what that is, but you know, looking at the other cities, what is Camas? Do we know what Camas, Ridgefield, Washougal, the center, what those guys are doing? The mayor said Vancouver's at 29% on the utility tax. So that's obviously helping fund some general fund stuff, but what are some of the other agencies doing?
I can't speak to Camas, but I know Washougal uses 25% of their REIT in
Okay.
order to fund the pavement. So you can use that as well, but you just have to make sure your REIT, that's all REIT will go towards, and then you can use 25,000 or 100,000, whichever is greater of your balance towards street preservation.
Okay.
So that's what they do. I'm not sure what Camas, Vancouver, and Ridgefield does.
Ridgefield passed through the sales tax.
They have the sales tax.
They did the sales tax TBD. They went to 0.2. Okay. I mean, that's an option. I think I like the TBD side of it because everybody that's using them are paying for them. But you know, my concern, and we never see this, is when you have all the people that come through our city and use our city, and especially right now when we have construction going on, how many of those people are going down different roads? How many of these people are going off? Like I see North 20th there is an issue. How many cars have we put on North 20th over the last 6 months versus, you know, 502, 503? You know, those things, I think it's better that everyone's participating in it, just coming through here and buying and stopping and shopping. So thank you.
Yes, sir. Anyone else?
I had a question
Yes, sir. Please.
about some of the pavement ratings, how it's done. I sent some pictures to Aaron. If you would pull those up.
Sure.
I
Joel,
went
I'm
and
gonna
looked at
take
a,
your, share screen off here real
yeah.
fast.
I went out and looked at a road in my neighborhood that is rated as poor. This is Northeast 17th at Crystal Springs. That's the entrance to it. We can go to the next one, please. That's another one from Northeast 17th. Go ahead. Again, Northeast 17th. And that's Northeast 17th, some patches with some potholes already developing. One more. All right. And then the next ones are at 6th and Clark. And this one's rated as poor, or very poor, not poor. And I'm trying to understand the difference between the two and how to reconcile that. Go ahead, Aaron. Again, you can kind of see how rough it looks.
And you're asking the difference between poor and very poor?
Yeah, I'm trying to understand the difference between the two.
Well, it's just like when you turn in your homework, did you get a F or did you get a D? There's not a big
Not a
difference.
lot of difference, yeah.
Not a lot of difference between it. There really isn't. Basically, in my world, when you have a road that's very poor, you can come in and structurally improve it and put a top coat on it, a wearing course on it, and fix it. You can go in isolated spots, get those really bad areas. You showed us some alligatoring where on the very poor road, it wasn't completely side to side alligator and falling apart. There's some areas that are still kind of structurally holding together. So when you get into a poor road, it's dead. You know, it's kind of like being pregnant. Are you pregnant or you're not? It's the same with dead. You're dead or you're not. So, and that's really where you're at with these roads. If they're very poor, and we call them BM, we kind of chuckle about that comment. It's a BM road. It's beyond maintenance. So you're falling into your only answer to fix that road is to structurally fix the entire thing, the base all the way up to the wearing course. So on a very poor road, you can kind of grind it off and fix it. Poor road, no, you're starting from the bottom on it up to fix it. So.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
And those roads typically don't go anywhere. So if it's very poor, it's poor, it's probably going to stay poor for quite a few years before it gets into the very poor. But somewhere there has to be a cutoff, and the cutoff in this system is 25. So if the PCI is at 25, it's very poor. If it's at 26, it's just poor. And believe me, you can't tell the difference between a 25 and a 26.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Would you go back to what he had previously in Mr. McCoy?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a couple quick questions first. What's the highest PCI you've seen locally in the area?
Let me think. Well, Ridgefield has jumped a lot.
Does it
They're
new
under a big booming construction thing going on right now. And we are in fact, this week, we're working in Ridgefield right now, updating their PCI. Excuse me, they're going through a lot of the growth like you guys have gone through lately. So
What about Wilsonville? What's their PCI?
Wilsonville's PCI is 81.
81.
So I'm trying to think who else around has a pretty good.
That's just kind of what I wanted. Thank you. That's what I wanted to get out of that. And then agreeing with Counselor Bowman on the funding, obviously
Listing.
if we can do it, it'd be great to do it, but I'd like to see a scenario kind of somewhere in between. What if we did, more than 1.2? And I noticed that that scenario kind of focused on the arterials. What if we focused more, made all the arterials, the roads that people are driving on most, completely got that off the deferred maintenance backlogs? What would the cost of that be?
You're
So that'd
at
be something we can
Excuse me.
investigate. So just for clarification, you would want kind of all arterials and the main collectors, take care of the potholes, all of that, and then do the surface treatment that's called for. Okay, yeah, essentially, basically do the unconstrained needs, but focus on
those.
on the arterial roads. For me, I mean, it's kind of, I know this is basically triage is what this spreadsheet essentially is. And I noticed in the current funding model, it triaged those arterials, but I'd just like to put, I guess, a finer focus on those. Yeah, and just kind of see what that pencils out at. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, sir.
So Mr. McCoy brought something to my mind too, that I think we need to look at too on this is those main arterials. Like if you go out there right now at 10 o'clock in the day and you see the amount of trucks that are running those, it doesn't matter if it's 502 or 503 up to the rock pit and back through here. I think I think we need to look at enforcement and making sure that this goes, and I heard the mayor say we're going to talk about a little bit of this later, but enforcement of our truck routes is important, because if those guys
They're on 20.
if they're on 20th and
They are.
they're jumping around and they're going to different places, our roads they're not meant for that. And so I think looking at that, and I think looking also, and I know this, I've seen the state out here quite a bit, the Washington State Patrol's commercial enforcement. I think that's something that we need to work with too, is seeing how many of these are overloaded and they're rolling through here and causing damage on our roads, because there's a lot of trucks rolling through this area right now with all the construction going on.
Are they coated off of the roads? Does the code prohibit them from getting on 20th? They were on for, when this cranked off, I was calling the city, they were rolling through quite regularly down 20th.
Yeah, so what the code says is you have to stay on a truck route. If you have a place you're going that's off a truck route, you essentially have to stay on a truck route as long as possible and then take the shortest route to that site and then go back to that spot to get back to the truck route. So I believe 20th is not a truck route. So if you had a construction site there, you should stay on like 244th and 239th, which are truck routes. Then you can take that shortest route and then go back to it and you would be fine.
Okay.
But if you're crossing through, you'd be violating the code.
Yeah, so they were coming down 25th, 244th, I guess, and then turning on to 20th and then skipping all this and coming back on at Eaton or Rasmussen, Eaton or Scott.
Yeah, you shouldn't go all the way through. It should, the way the code reads is the shortest route. You
Okay.
can leave the truck route to get to the spot, but you have
Yeah,
to take the shortest route
To
back.
deliver your load. That,
Yes.
that only makes sense.
Yep.
But, okay. What truck routes are there in the city?
It's kind of
Is-
the ring roads around, so like 244th, 20th, North 20th, I don't believe is, obviously 503, 502. Grace.
Arnsdorf?
I don't know about Onsdorf.
The reason I ask, all the construction over on the Grace side, the
By the Catholic Church.
but yes, is those trucks, would they be forced to come around 25th, go up and come down Grace and come through there? Or because they're coming straight through on Onsdorf?
Yeah, let me see if I can find the truck route map. real
And
fast.
as you know, when you cross over Parkway, that portion of Onsdorf that's we'll call a lane and a half is tiny to begin with.
Yeah, so everything in red is a truck route within the city limits, and then the blue is essentially the nearby county roads that would be truck routes.
So then at this point, I would ask the city to bring to the attention of the police department that we need a little help. That the maintenance people need their help because they are running trucks left and right up and down Onsdorf every day. And 20th. And so I would hope that we can get the cops to, I assume you don't need to be a state, whatever enforcement to pull
No.
someone over.
Not on a truck route, you
You
wouldn't.
just pull them over, give them a ticket. We're not weighing anything and do it that way. I would ask the city to do that. Joel, let me ask you a question. If we change the standard of any and all new subdivisions to make the pavement 3 millimeters or 3 centimeters, whatever, you'll forgive me, I'm not sure what millimeters and centimeters look like in pavement. If we decided to go an 1/8 inch thicker, what would that change for us?
An 1/8 of an inch in the asphalt, structurally, it doesn't change much at all.
What would we need to require to make it worth our effort?
A minimum of a 1/2 inch, but I would suggest 1 inch if you would be changing your policy and your city code. 1 more inch of asphalt and probably 4 to 6 more inches of base rock.
And that would, instead of right now, if I understand the way we work, 10 years, we do a kind of a slurry seal on it to keep it alive. And then at 25, we call it dead. If I understand it properly, Mark, do I have that relatively close?
I think at 25, you can do like a mill and fill to get it back and sort of start the process
Okay.
over if you've sealed it along the way.
If you've done
Yeah.
the maintenance up until that point.
Yeah.
So Joel, if we added an inch and we added 4 inches, what would that do for us?
Well, obviously, it's going to give you structurally more strength to your street. They're going to last longer. The biggest thing you can do, though, if that's where you're looking to make your streets a little beefier, make them last longer, is the actual inspection part of it when they are constructed. Because so many of these contractors these days are doing this work without the eye of the city on them. And it's gotten to be a real problem. And I don't know, I haven't spoken with Mark about this, if that's happening there. But, you know, when you've got so much growth going on, an inspector can't be everywhere at one time. But that, I would start there. That doesn't cost you any more money just to have better inspection out there. So, and that's what I see in my business. I see so many of these streets falling apart early. And it's because the fact that they're chinsing out on the material.
So Mark, let me ask you this then, who amongst us is qualified? I mean, it's pretty obvious. What's the current standard for us?
It varies. So if you have a local street, it's smaller than a larger street. So something like Grace would get, 6 inches, 7 inches of asphalt on 12 to 14 of rock. Whereas your local street is more like 3/10 and 8/10 of rock. And it's based on axle loading and number of trips and those sorts of things.
Because as you know, I do walk quite a bit and see the streets quite closely. As I walk through some of these new subdivisions that are only 2 and 3 years old, there's spider cracks already. And that's not warranted work, I assume, when we're 2.5, 3 years out.
No, and even 1 year along, you're going to start to see, correct me if I'm wrong, Joel, but I think you expect to lose about 2 points a year.
Yes, typically in the first 10 years of its life. Yes.
So on the street I'm thinking about on Northwest 6th Avenue, off of Northwest 25th Street, in that new subdivision down there, that's not that old. And so even if we're losing 2 points, if we, again, jacked up an inch and 2 inches or 3 inches for there, since it's a basics residential road, would we still have this issue 2 years out?
I still think you would see some of that. What you would improve is the structural piece. So you wouldn't be damaging the underneath. You typically have what's a wearing course, and that's the part that's supposed to take the damage. And so if you're on top of your crack sealing and your sealing, even though you'll get those hairline cracks, that's okay, because what's underneath is good and you're doing your job in sealing it and protecting the water from getting down into it.
Using what you know as today's dollar figure, if we added 1 inch and 4 inches, what would that add roughly to the price of a subdivision street?
Yeah, that's
Because
complicated math.
it's measured, if I saw it, by the square yard.
Yeah, so we do, I'll give you the example of 503, 502. So that's in tons, and we're at like $120 a ton. So adding another inch, maybe 50 tons over a stretch of road. So, $5,000, something like that.
What did
For
we
a
do?
block or,
What did we do on Main Street?
Main Street we milled out 2 and added 2, or put 2 back essentially.
So there was no base correction or any of that.
No, so whenever we do that, we have in there, once they pull the top off, we see if there's any underlying failures and they repair those. On Eaton and I think Maine, there wasn't any that we found. I know for sure on Eaton, I'm not as sure about Maine, but we checked that before we put the top back on, just to make sure there's no underlying issues.
So just the final wrap up on this, it would be a code change to say 1 inch and added onto current plus 3 or 4 inch, whatever base. Would that be a code change?
It's actually easier than that because it's in our standards. So the city engineer controls that and could change it with essentially a swipe of a pen.
And then, okay, and then when he talks about inspection, if I'm doing my road today, the base is down, someone comes out, I assume, walks whatever the length of the road is, every 100 feet, 200 feet, whatever, takes out and checks the depth.
Yeah, so you have a
How
couple
does that
things going on. You have our inspector that checks it, and then you have a private inspector that does compaction testing as well. So they're checking depth, they're making sure it's compacted correctly. We get all those test results to make sure that it meets the standard.
Do we own a sonar?
We don't and would not want to. It's got the nuclear
Nope.
So it takes special training and special licenses and
How much are those people? If we were to, as an example, one of these new subdivision roads, if we just want to run a test, sonar the road, and then let's see what we paid for. We know what we paid for. Let's see what we got.
if you're talking like the ground penetrating radar,
Yes.
I
excuse me, not
believe it's like a couple thousand for a day. We've done it a couple times looking for pipe. We haven't used it for the pavement thickness, but yeah, I don't think it's too expensive for a day.
So I would ask the city then to, on our next, wherever our next road is being completed, that we find $3,000-4,000, whatever it is, and that we do that. And let's see if we're getting what we paid for. As a former government employee, I can tell you that what the Army paid for and what we got was probably a country mile apart. And so I don't know why it couldn't be. And if we just go and we do it once, and then whomever that is, if they're good, they'll go tell their buddies, hey, listen, they're doing this now. If it's not good, then if the base isn't right, what happens? We tear it up?
Yep, they have to tear it out.
Okay, you see that as they put it down though?
Yeah, I mean, we have one inspector that has, 25 jobs in the city. So you're getting a brief glimpse of what's going on. There is, the private testing that we require, so that catches some of it too. But yeah, you just can't have enough people to look at every square inch of the job site as it's going along.
But you can see where the base level is, you can see where the curb, once.
For the asphalt, yes, it's not as easy on the rock just because it gets put down and you're like, but yeah, paving, you can usually tell because there's a 6-inch gap and that's the gap. Then doesn't magic, they don't leave it below the curb. So yeah.
So I assume then on these certifications, these independent contract or independent companies, they're insured and bonded.
Yep.
So if we did that and it contradicts to what they certified for.
Yeah, they're all certified testers. They're reputable companies. Yeah.
I don't see any downside to everyone has their work checked on. Show me your math, says the teacher, as you show her the answer or him the answer. Show us what you did. We can check it. And I would hope that the city will, whatever's coming next on whatever job site's coming and getting paid, that we will spend the $2,000, $3,000, whatever. And let's see if we get what we paid for. Mr. Joel, we're running kind of short. Does anyone else have any? I have one more. If we just took $2 million a year, sir, and just crack sealed and sealed, would that move us up anywhere that you see? Just
Yes, it would. A very aggressive seal program will definitely kick your PCI up. A lot of our clients have done that in a lot of cities and been real aggressive with the seal coating and the crack sealing, and you do. But you can only do that on roads that are in good condition. You can't do that, of course, on your roads that are poor or very poor. So
yes.
So even some of your roads that are in good condition, you can't do that on because they're showing structural distresses. And that doesn't fix that. So, but yes, the short answer to your question is your PCI will definitely move up, but it's almost an artificial inflated number because seal coats have a life cycle of about 7 years.
Okie doke. Any other questions from anyone for Joel or for Mark for that matter? I'm hearing none. Sir, as always, it's a shame we only see you every 3 years. But
Exactly.
it is a pleasure to see you again.
Okay, and likewise. Thank you for having
Take
me.
care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Anything else for Mark before it's 12 minutes of the hour? Seeing no one, we'll adjourn for now and come back right at 7 o'clock. It is 7 o'clock. If you'd please join us for the pledge of allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. I'll mispronounce your name and I apologize, but Miss Halili is new with us. This is her first day. It's a pleasure to have you. We wish you a very long career with us. And if you would be so kind as to, let's see who's here.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councilmember Davis.
Here.
Councilmember Cortez.
Present.
Councilmember DeRozier's.
Here virtually.
Mayor Johnson.
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Bowman.
Here.
Councilmember McCoy.
Here.
Councilmember Dingman.
Here.
That
Thank you.
concludes the roll.
Thank you. The agenda approval, I do have one item that needs to be removed. I need to remove the planning commission appointment. That will be at our next meeting. Are there any other adjustments?
Move to approve the agenda minus the planning commission appointment.
Thank you, sir.
Second.
Thank you, sir. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none. Council member reports.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, sir.
Had a meeting of the Lower Columbia Fish Recovery Board, which for those aren't aware is the main avenue for all the different species. It's quite an elaborate committee, still learning quite a bit, and some more press out there about perhaps recovery isn't going along as well as thought. But one project that did jump up that local people might be unaware of is Cedars got approved for funding. They're going to look at some recovery efforts there. I guess that fork has a strong coho salmon run. So I was surprised that it was on the list, but they're going to be doing a study and looking at making the Cedars area more habitable for salmon. So that was in the latest report. Salmon Creek that runs through Cedars.
Salmon Creek. Huh.
So.
Didn't realize that at all. Matter of fact, Ms. Urban and I had spoken with Ms. Marshall not too long ago, trying to figure out what the county's plan, now that they own the golf course, what their plan was. Did you happen to hear back from them? Just to see if they're going to let it go back to
Nature.
wild and with trails cut through it so you can appreciate what it is, or if it's just going to.
Well, there is a county councilor on this board. Councilor Medvigi is on there, so it may instruct them on what to do with that area.
Cool deal.
I don't know. I have not talked to him about it, but it's a possibility.
Okey doke.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Anyone else? Seeing no one else, I'll move on to my part. I am honored this evening to see Ms. Frederickson here. Please, Skylar, if you will. She is kind enough to have accepted our invitation to be on the Parks and Community and the Parks Board. And she will be this year, I believe, a senior at Battleground High School. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, and then we'll see if we can find at least 4 people to say you're okay.
Hi, everyone. I met a lot of you at the Cornhole tournament a couple months back, and I would be extremely honored to work with all of you in the future. This experience has made me really grateful for my position at Battleground High School in the National Honor Society Communications Officer position. And I'm just really grateful because it gave me the opportunity to be here today. As a resident of Battleground my whole life, I've always had a passion for the community. But seeing the joy that the Cornhole tournament brought the community, it made me realize how badly I wanted to be a part of it. I feel that I would be a great addition to continuing the spread of that happiness if you would allow me.
For those that didn't come to the Cornhole tournament, there are rules. And the cornhole boards have to be 27 feet apart. And Skylar and her beau, there he is. Good seeing you. Were our official tape measure people to put it back at 27 feet. It's amazing to me when you throw the little 1 pound bag and it hits the board, how much it moves the board. Unlike my friends to my left who have serious degrees in science and stuff, I don't. And so you did us a wonderful service then. We're honored that you accepted our offer here, and we look forward to a nice year hanging out with you on the Parks Board. May I have a motion for Scott?
So moved.
Thank you, sir.
Second.
Thank you, sir. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Oh, thank you. Any opposed? Hearing none. Welcome aboard, and we look forward to seeing you at our next event held at the community center.
Thank you. Mayor.
Yes, pleasure to have you.
Thank you.
And on our part, we'll now move on to Ms. Urban.
Thank you, Mayor Johnson. We have two presentations this evening, and I'm going to turn it over to Deputy City Manager, Mr. Ferrier.
Thank you. This evening, we are joined first by Bill Hibbs, who is the Commercial Programs and Key Account Manager at Clark Public Utilities District. As the council is aware, Clark provided some funding to help with the construction of the EV charging stations here at City Hall. And I'll ask Bill to step forward and he has a brief presentation.
Tell us what we got, sir.
All right. Yeah. Thanks for having me this evening. I appreciate it. My name is Bill Hibbs with Clark Public Utilities. It's true. I manage commercial energy efficiency programs and key accounts at Clark PUD. Been there for 26 years and I'm here to present a check, but I also wanted to highlight some of the good work that the city of Battleground's done over the years. You know, I've had a lot of different positions within the utility and I've worked with the city of Battleground on many different projects. When I managed our street lighting department, City of Battleground was the first city to have a LED streetlight retrofit pilot project, right? It was 50 streetlights at that time, 70-watt LED replacing the 100-watt Cobra head streetlights. The technology has gotten much better. You know, the lights now are about 30 watts. And then, you know, I'd say about 2018, we had a CFL recycling program that some of you may be familiar with. And the city of Battleground kindly offered to be kind of a North County outpost for that recycling program. And folks come in here to the city and exchange their CFLs for LED light bulbs. And we just come take the old stuff away and replenish their stock. And then most recently, been working on some strategic energy management with the city of Battleground. They were one of the first customers to kind of join our SEM pilot also. For those that don't know, SEM, Strategic Energy Management, really kind of focuses on low cost, no cost opportunities for energy efficiency, right? A lot of folks consider lighting to be the lowest hanging fruit and really optimization of your existing facilities through scheduling and mechanical optimization is really the true lowest hanging fruit. So yeah, a lot of good work done over the years. And then last but not least, I'm here to present a check for the installation of the EV chargers down in the parking lot. We have an EV grant opportunity program that pays up to 50% of project cost for publicly accessible chargers. So I'm happy to present the check and also thank the city of Battleground for the partnership and collaboration.
It's a pleasure, sir. I would remind the audience as well, we did do something else on the water side with the PUD back in 17, 18, was it? Shower heads. We did shower heads that were provided by the PUD. So why don't we come down? We'll accept the check. We'll shoot a picture so you can take it back with you so you folks knew you spent tonight with us.
Sounds good. You can keep the big check.
Oh,
I'm also
really?
going to give you the small check.
We really want- yeah,
Fits a little bit more conveniently in your bank account.
Miss Erdman will take the small check. I'll take the big.
I'm hoping to watch Megan walk Happy Gilmore style out that down the back.
Yeah. I had a whole bunch of them in the back of my car. Yeah.
Of the small check?
No, big check.
Oh, I misunderstood.
And it was just one.
Sorry, we'll head out to the car if you have a bunch of the small ones.
Who wants to hold it? Thank you. Thanks a lot. Appreciate it. Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Pleasure. Thank you. Thank you.
One in front of that.
You just start plastering along after our check.
And we're still with you, Ms. Urban.
Thank you. So our next item is,
Still with him.
yeah, the next item is we're going to introduce our new employee, Elizabeth Halili, our new city clerk. So Elizabeth, if you wouldn't mind coming to the podium right here. And I'll read a quick bio for her. Elizabeth joins us from the city of Longview, where she has worked since 2018. She was recognized for a lot of great work that she did there in Longview, including she was recognized by the Washington State Department of Transportation for her outstanding records management and organizational abilities. She did such a great job that in 2022, she was appointed as the deputy city clerk for the city of Longview. And during her tenure there, she researched and implemented new social media archiving software and developed new and ongoing Public Records Act training for the city's elected officials and staff. Elizabeth is originally from Portland. She has resided in Kelso for the past 18 years. Before starting her career in public service, Elizabeth and her husband David owned and managed an import store in Uptown Village, Vancouver. During her time as a shop owner, Elizabeth's most notable accomplishment was organizing and managing the Urban Growers Market, which is a farmers and artisan market held twice a month in the parking lot and along the sidewalks outside her shop. And the market not only brought the community together, but also helped to revitalize businesses in the area. In her free time, Elizabeth cherishes spending time with her family, which includes her husband, her son, 6 cats, 4 chickens, and a rooster. She also enjoys playing the darbuka drum, and traveling to and exploring diverse cultures around the globe. Elizabeth has more than 25 years of service in administrative and professional roles, with the last 5, as I mentioned, spent here working in local government. She is a joyful person. She is enthusiastic, a lifelong learner, and she has a talent for achieving extraordinary results in special projects and fostering professional relationships based on mutual respect and trust. Speaking for the administrative department, we are very pleased to have her join us. Forgive my language. I'm super stoked to have our city clerk with us. And so I'll ask Elizabeth to say a few words.
Please.
Thank you, sir, very, very much. It is a great honor to be here today to serve the city of Battleground. I can't tell you how thrilled I am to be standing in the chamber with all of you. I'm a Rotarian, so I actually belong right now to the Longview Early Edition Rotary Club. And I will be attending some of the Rotary meetings down here. I look forward to meeting the gang in this town and doing my best to promote transparency in government and serving for many years as your city clerk. It's an honor.
But before you step away, we can't let you go without explaining what a darbuka drum is. We have an idea what a conga drum is, and a bongo drum and a snare drum. What is the drum that you use?
So the darbuka drum is a drum originally from Egypt or Turkey. It is often used in belly dancing. It's a goblet drum. Mine is about this long. It weighs about 15 pounds. It's all covered in mother of pearl. And you actually play it this way. So you sit and play that drum. And I love playing that drum.
Well, so I believe all of us now will either tonight or tomorrow go on to YouTube and look at and something similar to that. And if you would be so kind as when you get home this evening, shoot us a picture send it to Miss Urban. She'll send us a picture of your drum because we would like to see what a mother of pearl darbuka, DARBOOKA.
DARBUKA. It's also called a Doombek.
There we go. That's why we come to these meetings. Well, Ms. Halili, we appreciate your joining us. And again, we wish you a wonderful career.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
You're more than welcome. Oh, yeah, I forgot. We'll have to do that.
Yeah.
I get my Johnny Carson right.
Yeah.
Okay, if you'll please raise your right hand and repeat after me.
However you wish. Face her.
Okay.
Yeah, face her.
I state your name.
I, Elizabeth Halili,
Do solemnly affirm or swear
do solemnly affirm or swear
that I am a citizen of the United States
that I am a citizen of the United States
and of the state of Washington,
and of the state of Washington,
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution and laws of the state of Washington,
and the Constitution and laws of the state of Washington,
and I will, to the best of my judgment,
and I will, to the best of my judgment,
faithfully and impartially,
faithfully and impartially,
perform all duties of city clerk
perform all duties of city clerk
for the city of Battle Ground,
for the city of Battle Ground,
county of Clark,
county of Clark,
state of Washington,
state of Washington,
as such, duties are prescribed by law.
as such duties are prescribed by law.
Congratulations.
We'll just catch her here since she's right next to it.
Sir, thank you, sir. Oh.
Thank you so much.
We'll have you bring that drum in maybe next meeting. And we'll just see how that goes.
Oh,
How
my.
does it compare with? the
It's
accordion?
very loud.
Well, it's better than my accordion. I'm sure you play better than I do. So.
That would be interesting.
But who knows? Mr. Dingman plays the guitar.
And we got a trumpet.
Oh, and a
Quite the
trumpeter.
band.
Yeah, the band's all here. Whew. Anything else, Ms. Urban? I would be remiss if I didn't recognize Chief Purdue with us this evening. It's a pleasure to have you, sir. And again, we're grateful you're here as well.
Thank you.
You're more than welcome, sir. Moving on. Citizens communications, it is open for communications. Individuals are limited to 3 minutes. Council may not be able to respond to individual comments and may refer you to a staff member to assist if it comes to it. I do have one this evening. Ms. Edmark, please, if you would. It's a pleasure to have you, madam.
Thank you. I appreciate you allowing me to speak to you today.
You're on.
Thank you. My name is Kristen Edmark. I live in Battle Ground, but just a little north of the actual city limits. And a few weeks ago, a friend of mine, Don Stanky, came to speak to you and presented you with a list which may help the city of Battle Ground meet the state mandated Growth Management Act requirement, which will reduce emissions and per capita vehicle miles traveled. I'm here to emphasize that there are a lot of people in Battle Ground that are concerned about the worsening climate. My daughter-in-law's family lost a home in the 2020 Oregon fires. I love the natural beauty of this area, and I hate the idea that the heat is causing deaths and species extinctions. And I have 3 grandchildren. Battle Ground needs to make some changes. I have submitted written comments with some of the suggestions, many of them that same as Don Stanky, by the Washington State Department of Commerce. A lot of these are very common sense suggestions that could be accomplished easily. Of course, it's easier to put conduit in a parking lot, which will eventually have EV charging before you put down the pavement. And of course, it's a lot easier to put the wiring in new homes.
so that people can have the choice of electricity if they want. Instead of having to do it after the fact. I'm especially concerned about citizens who rent, who don't often have a choice and often have to accept natural gas. And of course, the American Lung Association points out the health problems of that natural gas can cause some people, reduced lung function, inflammation of the airways, more asthma attacks, and exacerbation of respiratory issues. So I hope that you will move on these, that you won't wait, and that you'll take them seriously. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. A pleasure to have you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Seeing no one else, we'll go ahead and close that out. We'll move to the consent agenda. Does any member see any reason to have anything removed? Move to approve. Thank you, sir.
Second.
Thank you, sir. All in favor? Aye. Mr. Rogers?
Sorry, I just figured I'd be really loud replying. Yes, approve.
Okey-doke. Any
Sorry.
opposed? Hearing none. Moving on. Resolution number 23-08, request to continue operations at the Larks Correction Center. A motion, it was in your packet, so everyone we're not going to read it, but it will be in the record. Everyone has read it, I assume. If there's a motion.
Move to adopt resolution number 2308, requesting the Washington State Department of Corrections to continue operations at the Larch County Corrections Center as presented.
Thank you, sir.
Second.
Thank you, sir. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none. Moving on. Ms. Erdman, the Northbrook Development Agreement presentation.
Thank you, Mayor Johnson. Share my screen here real fast. As you are all aware, Mr. Campos and Mr. Sterling have been working with the city and the council to reach a development agreement for this Northbrook apartment project. Kind of started out as the Battleground Village Apartments, and we've renamed it since. So just to clear up any confusion there. In front of you today is a draft development agreement, and this is the concept plan that is attached to that draft agreement. Basically, the DA is allowing for some ground floor residential in the downtown area. Would still maintain commercial on the corners of Southeast Commerce and 11th and Southeast Commerce and 10th. The other is to alleviate a few parking spaces, but we've written it in the development agreement that would not exceed 25 spaces less than what the current standard is. When we discussed this last time, they are going to be meeting the 1.5 spaces per unit, except for when it comes to the studio apartments, as we've done in the past. So they will also still be meeting the 15% open space requirements for the multifamily jurisdiction, and everything else should be the same. So the main thing that we are changing with the development agreement is the ground floor residential. Mr. Campos and Mr. Sterling are here today in the audience. If you should have questions, I'll have the
Step on up, gentlemen.
and I'll turn it back over to the council.
Pleasure to have you.
Pleasure to meet you guys in person. We've talked on Zoom quite a bit. I think for a few years on this one.
Yeah, we're all a little bit older. Have you anything to add?
No, I think this is a really a vital project for Battleground to take on to increase our affordable housing and workforce housing stock. And I think this is a really collaborative approach to take a large piece of downtown zoned property that allows for 100% site coverage, no parking, and kind of dovetail it into a site plan that's going to be homogeneous with the community as a whole out there. It is a live work community, and I think we can, provide housing for the people that do work in that area.
Okay. Any questions for the gentleman? Okay, go ahead.
I'd like to, do we need a motion for this? I had a question. Oh, go ahead.
So previous councils have seen this. I have not been part of those. So essentially on this presentation, the possible townhome style units that's what would have to be commercial. Is that correct? Is that?
No, you have a picture of this. So we have commercial facing corners along Commerce. And so we won't have any residential units facing Commerce Avenue at all. The possible townhome styles, we're kind of envisioning, just as a note, we really need to kind of get the land use part done before we can get an architect involved and spend that kind of
Understood.
money.
What I'm trying to get at is what is this developer's agreement changing from, if this wasn't in place, would those possible townhome style units be commercial, not residential? Is that essentially what the DA is doing?
Yeah, so it would actually, what it is changing is every building would have ground floor commercial.
But on this, even the commerce, so on this,
Yes.
we're even allowing even the commerce spacing to be.
So these, what the original plan was for the townhouse was that those would be facing each other, not actually facing out towards Commerce
Oh,
to
I
give
see that.
kind of, yeah.
Yeah, we won't have any residential units facing Commerce.
Yeah.
We're just gonna do kind of a brownstone kind of alleyway there to enter the units off of that.
Mr. Mayor. I have another question.
Let's see if Mr. McCoy, you have, are you finished?
Right now, yeah.
Okay, yes, ma'am.
So what we are saying that you're trying to take away some of the commercial and put ground floor on instead.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that master plan in Battleground Village has struggled to lease up certain types of commercial space. And we felt that especially the space away from Commerce wouldn't be economically viable. And so this provides a lot more housing for the community that's ground floor, that's accessible. And while people may not be ADA, they may be mobility impaired or just aging in place. And so those ground floor units are extremely valuable to the community. And so I think it's and that's why we proposed this.
Mr. Campos, speaking of homogeny, I assume that the exterior is going to be something similar to what's there in the Battleground Village.
Yeah, and we're gonna do an enhanced facade along Commerce to have more of a commercial appeal. We're gonna meet commercial glazing standards as well.
What
I
would be,
think I think that's in the DA.
is it,
I don't think we did add that to the DA, so we could look at doing that.
I think it's.
If it's not in the DA, I would like us to take a look at that.
It might be missing.
you don't want a chartreuse kind of front or anything?
Not really.
Yeah, I don't think we added that language, but we can.
No,
I think it's in there.
nice lime
It's in
green
fine.
chartreuse color.
We talked about the ADA.
Yeah.
Something to pencil in. Okey doke. And then a couple of questions for me. When we look at the commercial facing, what do you anticipate that square footage being on the two pieces of commercial?
It's the lineal face of the building. As far as depth goes, we're gonna try to find something that is economically feasible and marketable. So I don't know exactly. I think that's something that's a bridge we'll cross when we get into architect. Because we need to be able to balance the depth of the space with the units in the back. So figuring that out. But like I said, they'll be deep enough that they're functional, leasable offices.
Okey doke. And then as you probably remember, the last times you've been here, my question has always been on 134 units. We assume that out of 134, there will be at least roughly 100 children there. I see that park area in my eye. I see that being roughly 1,000 square feet. That's not a park to me for 100 children. What is your vision as playground?
We have a park out just next to the Seasons at the Park to the due west of it. And then sorry.
So what do you see your park as then?
We see it as a community area I was reading for that glazing standard. We just see it as open space and, I've enjoyed this area just as a pedestrian, walking the dogs, being mobile. And the fact that you aren't, in a lot of apartment complexes, you go behind a gate and you're stuck on the facility. So everything has to be fully enclosed. But that's not the spirit of a live work community. There's, we do have miles of sidewalk out there. We do have miles of, we have the ability to tie into other amenities within that community. And so we see, like I said, we see this development as being a piece of that larger puzzle, or whatever we want to use.
You're familiar with the park behind you?
Yes.
How big is it? What
It's got, I think it's got a basketball. hoop back
what's
there.
the park behind there? Do you know the name
Yeah,
of?
we looked it up last time. I had to see if I could.
It's decent size.
It's reasonably big, yeah.
Yeah,
And
it's-
also, the language in the DA does indicate that the area must include open space and a play structure. It may also include sports courts, outdoor recreational facilities, trails and paths, community garden or similar type features. So we are requiring some sort of structure to be placed there, and I will see if I can pull up an aerial. of the
Are
other
we
park.
crossing over the railroad track to get to that park?
No, it's not.
It's out by the railroad track. The park is. It's just to the south of the apartments that are there right now, the original apartments.
Well, those are for 75 and 80-year-olds.
No, that's the 55 and older ones we did second. The original ones that are in there, the 3-story ones. Back by the library, behind the library,
Oh,
the park's just to the south of that.
okay, okay,
So it is pretty good size.
okay. I'm thinking we certainly wouldn't put that kind of park in for 75 and 80-year-olds.
No.
Even though we love 75 and 80-year-olds and they need a park as well.
We do look.
Just not swings, I guess. Any other questions for the gentleman?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
I just want a clarification, probably from Aaron. So essentially on the parking, since this is zoned downtown, this development agreement essentially ensures us more parking spaces than it would have otherwise. Is that a correct assumption?
That's correct. They could have done all above ground residential and ground floor commercial with 0 parking per the downtown standard. So this does provide a lot more parking and accessibility for this site.
Okay, thank you for that.
And on the commercial standards, on the design standards, I think we should, if it's okay, if we're gonna add to this DA, maybe just note it on the first floor.
Any other questions of the gentleman?
Thank you.
So what we're looking for is kind of a thumbs up, thumbs down kind of thing to continue to move forward.
Yeah, we just want to make sure there was no major changes or updates to the existing draft. We will set a public hearing and draft an ordinance and bring this back.
So
And then this is,
what is the park behind that? What area is that?
That's, yeah, see, they're just right here.
so these right here, so this is the larger original apartment complex. This is an open yard that is owned by the excavating company. So it kind of sits and it's connected by a sidewalk through here. So this whole area is the park area.
Okay.
Yeah, and then
And-
their
and then-
project would be up here.
No, right.
Oh, no,
south,
right here.
That
Sorry,
one.
that one, yeah.
Okay.
So you're talking half a block.
Yeah.
To the park.
And I think it's a private road through there, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's what I was going to ask. Is that a sidewalk between the excavating company and how will you get there?
You would go due west and
There's the sidewalk.
There's a sidewalk and then
And then it goes into there.
and we'll be constructing a connector on the south side of that lot, right about where that cursor's at, heading east. And so we'll continue that sidewalk across the face of the project and then as well as on the south side of that private road.
Okey dokey.
Will that be a private road for you guys too, or is that public road?
it's private. So 10th and 11th will be private.
Okay. So when it comes to parking issues,
It's our problem.
your problem, good.
Oh, my. Any other questions? It's up or down. Anyone see a reason not to? She's a down. Anyone else? Looks like we're moving forward.
Okay, we will set the public hearing and bring back the ordinance for adoption.
Thank you so much.
Pleasure to have you, sir. We're 2.5 years into this, I believe. Give or take. Give or take. Moving on to the MFTE Deacon Development. Ms.
Yes.
Erdman.
On this one, I'm going to turn it over to our Community Development Director, Mr. Crummett.
Good evening, council. This is the final step of entering into a contract for the multifamily tax exemption program with Deacon Development. On November 21st, 2022, the council adopted a resolution that essentially set a public hearing to consider this program. On January 17th, the city council adopted the ordinance which selected the target area or where this program could be applied. At that time, the council limited this program just to the Deacon Development property. And then we're finally at the stage, I guess I should say in February 6th, the council then adopted an ordinance that puts specific code language into our municipal code of how this program would function. And since that time, the applicant Deacon Development has applied to enter into this program. A contract has been prepared. It's been reviewed by our legal counsel. And we are recommending that the council adopt or have the city give the city manager the authority to sign this agreement. And then if signed, the developer would then need to actually construct within a 3-year time frame. And then once a certificate of occupancy is issued, that's when we would issue a final certificate, coordinate with Clark County Assessment Department, and that's when the taxes would be off the rolls for a period of 8 years. Any questions?
Any questions? Yes, sir.
So Sam, can you tell me what the total for this project was again?
According to the applicant, the assessed value is at 55 million. And that comes out to 530,000 for each year in taxes.
530,000 that we're losing for each year. So we're losing $4 million.
That's not.
Approximately.
That's total. Property.
Total property taxes. Do we know? So I'm going to go back to the last meeting.
Yes, sir.
When the fire district sent their thing. What is the total the fire district's going to lose on that?
Run the.
I think they're at $1.31, correct?
Didn't we do this last meeting? Look at everyone, look at you while you're doing the math. Everyone look at Megan and while she's doing the math. Carry the one. Yeah.
About $67,000 a year, so times 8, so about 536,000.
Okay. So that's when this was presented to us, it was presented to us that that no one's losing money except for us, right? That we were losing the money, the rest was being spread out over the taxpayers. School district, that got spread out. The fire district, the library district, the cemetery district, those are losing the money. So for that, I'm going to be the same way as I was 2 weeks ago or a month ago, I guess.
3 weeks ago.
Is I just think that there was too many unknowns going into it. We knew one thing. Now they had made an offer at one point in time to give the school district, was it 100,000? 300 to the school district and 300 to fire, or 300 total, I think is what it was.
300 total.
Total split between the two, but we have no control over that, correct? If they say, hey, we're gonna give 300,000, it has nothing to do with us, right? They can say, no, we're not gonna do it now, right? There's no way for us to enforce that.
And I'd have to go back and look at what the actual language in the DA got written as, but I think that got taken out because of the gifting issue. So,
Yeah.
Yeah.
So my issue once again is just we're before what the state has put out. We don't know how this is going to work out. We don't know how this is going to end. We know that it's going to affect other agencies, not just ourselves that only rely upon this as their sole. I'm against this at this time because of that. Thank you.
I do see Mr. Llewellyn online as well. It's a pleasure to have you, sir.
I will point out that we did already adopt and approve a development agreement with the developer that we would go down this path. So this is kind of the formality of that process, because that has already been approved. So.
But that was approved without having information. That was approved without having all the knowledge that we should have had to make that decision, correct?
Does that matter contractually?
Let me correct you. It was with the best knowledge we had at the time. So that there was nothing, there was no falsehoods or.
But if
fakes.
that has changed before we adopt this, that means we can change that, right?
We have entered into a development agreement with the developer, and they have based their process moving forward on that decision that was originally made by the council.
On what we did 4 months ago.
We cannot change it. So I remember Deacon had said, I know you said the tax assessed value about 55 million. But I vividly recall they said the actual construction cost is going to be somewhere close to 90 million. Was that just perhaps too early of a cost? Because my whole thing was I wanted to see what our construction sales tax would be off that project. Because I mean, if you look at 55 million, you know, and I know not the whole 8.6% do we get, but 8.6% off 55 million is close to $5 million. So.
Yeah, Deacon may be able to answer that better. I do know, talking with them, that even for them, their finances have changed in the past 2 years. So I think they're kind of at a point where this decision is a big factor for them for moving forward with financing. But yeah, Ian, who I believe is online, might be able to give a cost of construction.
Sir, do you have an idea? Roughly, we're not going to hold you to it, of course.
Sure. Yeah, can you guys hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
Great. Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity this evening. Yes, so the total cost overall, all inclusive, are going to be around $90 million. That would include the multi-family piece as well as
we have a poor connection. If you could say that, just the dollar figure one more time.
Yeah, the total project costs are around 90 million, and just the construction cost portion of that.
Thank you. Yeah, we have you're going in and out. So 90 million. If you'll just nod your head, if we understood it. Okay. Thank you. Zoom. Ms. Davis.
Thank you. So when Deacon first came, and I want to make sure I'm got the steps right, they came with a developer's agreement for residential on the bottom and in the back.
Yes.
So that was approved. And then they came back a few months later and they said, well, now we know we have this multifamily tax exemption. And we want this approved at that point. I feel that I need to say, for my benefit, at that time, I voted against the MFTE. I voted for the developers agreement. And so my whether it passed or not, I'm still against this. So that when they say, well, we did a developers agreement, I understand that, but then they came back first for additional, and that is what is here tonight. And I wanted just to make sure that the reason why I'm saying no is because I was against this in the first place. So I just wanted to make that clear as far as the two differences that I had and why I am
Yes,
where I
ma'am.
am today. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
And just to clarify too, the
Yes.
development agreement originally came to council. We didn't actually adopt it. We kind of put it on hold, talked about the MFTE piece, and it was all adopted together. So I just want to clarify that it wasn't one after the other. It kind of was, but the main agreement included both of them upon original adoption.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, sir.
So is there anything, I also, with Counselor Bowman's comments, also take pause with the money that's not going to fire district and other municipalities or organizations. Is there anything preventing the city from supplementing based on, like Councilmember Cortez says, we're getting more sales tax revenue from this? Is there, put $50,000 towards a new building, whatever that may be? Is there anything that prevents us from doing something like that, easing the impact of this tax in that way?
Let me ask you, first of all, why would we want to do that?
Just-
We make up roughly half of the district. So are we helping the people in Hawkinson? Are we helping the people in Brush Prairie? Not that I'm saying there's anything wrong with them, but is it our citizens' responsibility to make the people in Hawkinson or Brush Prairie whole?
Well,
Because we are the district.
well, and just to get back to this project may potentially increase calls. So, I mean, it would be a greater drain on the fire district. My only question, I'm not saying I'm in favor of it. I'm just asking, is that a possibility? Because originally a developer was going to do this. They can't do gift of funds and developer agreement. We're saying we're trying to make the fire district whole. What are our other options, if any?
I would have to refer, Megan may have a better idea, but we'd probably want to check with our legal because I'm not 100% sure.
We might get into the same.
Yeah, I think, I'm
issues.
guessing
It's-
we're going to have the same issue as the developer had.
Yeah, and I would echo Councilmember Bowman's comments. That it's unfortunate that that's where we're at, but at the same point, this is where we're at, so.
Yes, sir.
I just want to point out, I think I saw him put, Deacon Development put on there that it's roughly going to be a $70 million
Yes, he did.
construction cost. So $70 million construction costs with, you just use 8.6% sales tax, roughly over $6 million that project's going to generate just in construction sales tax alone. I fully understand not all that comes to the city. Then on top of that, we're going to be receiving an increase of utility taxes once those units are rented out. Then on top of that, we're also going to be receiving impact fees from that project. Then on top of that, the fire agency will still receive fire impact fees. Am I correct?
That's
I'm
correct.
correct. So that is a huge economic generating project, regardless of the pause on property tax.
But
And
who's the
But-
economic benefit?
Hang on a second, and then as we've seen in our financial reports, sales tax generation now equals just about half of all our income coming in the city. We're not as reliant on property taxes as we once were. So when these doors get filled, those are real people. They're going to be spending real money. That's completely absent of everything I just went over right here, which is going to generate even more sales tax revenue.
Mr. Is it, I'm sorry, sir, is it Llewellyn or Llewellyn? How is that pronounced? Because I don't want to slaughter your name.
Yeah, no problem. I turned my video off, so hopefully you might be able to hear me a little better.
It is better. Thank you. Yes, sir. I see you have your hand up.
Oh, yeah, I just wanted to, all very good points. I did want to just mention the way that the current credit markets and financing markets are structured and heading. The reality of our situation is the project's not going to move forward without the property tax abatement. That's just the nature of kind of the industry and the capital markets where we're at. So unfortunately, if that were the case, this tax base and these SDC fees and the employment it creates and the future sales tax generated by all of the customers shopping at the retail mall would be non-existent as well. So certainly different ways to look at it, but there's a lot of things that would be lost there, setting aside the tax abatement portion if the project wasn't able to move forward. So I just wanted to mention that.
Thank you, sir. Yes, sir.
So my issue has nothing to do with the city. If you look at the majority of the comments that were made when the fire district did their lid lift, it was on us giving away multifamily tax exempt, because that all benefits the city. Sales tax benefits the city. The people living here and buying the retail sales tax benefits the city. None of this benefits the fire district at all. None of this benefits the library. None of this benefits the cemetery districts, whoever else is on there that depends on that millage rate. So that's my issue. I don't care. I mean, I understand we can look at it and say, okay, there's going to be an economic factor for us to give this up. We're going to get back X amount, right? And if you add, I don't know what the total there is. Let's say you add 500 people. What is that going to generate to the city? But my issue is the fire district. And when we were presented this, it was no one was losing money, and there are agencies losing money. If it was us and the county came out and did this, we'd be pissed. If the county said, oh, by the way, we're taking this away from you guys, we'd be absolutely livid that the county could do that. And we'd be asked, whether they were told that, they had the best of their knowledge at that time, we'd be upset. And that's my issue with this. It has nothing to do with the fact that we're going to lose, $500,000 in property tax revenue, because property tax, like you said, is very little in our general budget. But for the fire district, and when we talk about 1%, when we talk about taking the 1% increase, when we don't take it, people say, well, it's only 1%, but compound it. So what's that compounding factor for them also on that 8 years worth of not having that too? So that's my only issue with it. And I still think until it's a done deal, but I mean, if you're saying legally, we said legally that you could do this, and we found out we were wrong too. So, that's the issue I have. I've said it every time you put 3 attorneys in a room, you'll get 6 opinions. So, we've got 6 opinions, and not one of them has been right. And I'm sorry if this is what they need to do a project. I get that, but we just had one 3 weeks ago that, was asking for the same thing. And everyone will say that's what they need to do a project, because if you can spend $70 million and put $2 million back in the person doing the project, I'll tell you all day long, that's what I need to do the project.
But it's the nature of the beast. We are following what Olympia has set forth to the T. We haven't gone to the left, haven't gone to the right. We've walked straight down the line to the best of our knowledge. I mean,
and I get it. Yeah.
There's nothing perfect, especially coming out of Olympia. And so we have done the best that we can. And for now to a year in roughly to tell these gentlemen, well, yeah, no, that's not who we are. We sure wouldn't want to be treated that way with what the best knowledge at the time. Hindsight, of course, as they say. So I understand both of your causes with the fire department, the cemetery district, and the library. But in this case, we passed the point of no return.
And I'll grant you this. I wish we would have spent more time on this before we approved this. We could come up with a more comprehensive, a more thoughtful policy when it comes to what we want to identify as tax exempt. I really do, because I think it would look a little bit different. That being said, I agree with the mayor. We've already gone past the point of no return. And so I'm trying to identify the highlights that this will bring to the community, rather than, saying, oh, I'm just against it, I'm just against it, right? So,
well, and I'm fine with that. I just think that we have to, all of us are gonna own this. All of us are gonna own the fact that we just gave away $2 million and screwed over a taxing agency that doesn't have a way to make it up. And we've got to own that. And the problem with that is anytime you do something like this is the challenge. We need to slow things down. A guy told me that a long time ago, like, what's your issue with government? I said, they move too slow. And he said, because if they move fast, they make mistakes. We made a mistake. We made a big mistake. And this could affect anything that we do, whether it be a TBD vote or anything, because we made a mistake and gave a developer $2 million. And we can say all day long, this is why we did it. We did exactly what the state told us we could do, but the people don't believe you. And so when, I mean, they spoke, we passed the annexation vote 81%. They couldn't get 50% to do a lid lift. And this was one of the biggest things that came up was the tax exempt, the multifamily tax exempt that we were handing out. And everyone will say it over and over and over. It's the developers and developers, developers. And that's the challenge that we run into. So I think we need, to have a better policy. We'll take this one and we'll own it as 7 of us. And as the city will own this, but we need to have a better policy about this kind of stuff, especially when the state does not even have a policy on it, especially when we don't know what's going on and we allow someone to come in and tell us, well, this is what's happening. I mean, Mr. Fontenette stood here and told us the exact opposite of what we knew 3 weeks ago, because that's the best of his knowledge at the time. And we had heard different things. So I think we need to have a better policy about these kind of things before we just give away $2 million.
We rarely disagree, but on this case, we did the best for the people we represent. We don't represent, each of us is an individual customer of the fire district. The city is a customer of the fire district. We did for the best at the time for the folks of Battleground, Washington. That's just the way I see it.
We do represent those same people in the fire district.
That's correct.
So those 50% of that fire district we do represent. And we gave it away.
But not on behalf of the fire district.
Fire district's not gonna walk away with nothing.
They'll get impact fees.
Yeah. And that's
67,000.
Not 60, way more than that.
That's what it was. It was
67,000?
It was 67,000 on TJ's property.
But this is a significantly bigger project.
Well, they'll get the commercial. So they'll get 67,000 on from the residential side of things. They'll also get it on the commercial side based on square footage.
Full tax revenue on the commercial side.
Yeah.
Correct.
And that is still taxed on the commercial side. So you're not losing the tax on the commercial piece.
It's not like they're getting 0.
Any other questions? Any other statements? Hearing none, seeing none, may I get a motion? I'll make the motion. I move to authorize the city manager to sign the multifamily tax exemption agreement with Deacon Development LLC as presented.
Second.
Thank you, sir. Is there any further discussion?
Roll call.
I am, but I'm goodness. Not everyone can be a Johnson. So Ms. Halili, I'm going to get that, I promise. If you would call us by name, please.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes,
If
sir.
I may ask one quick question before
Please.
we do our roll call?
Yes, sir, please.
Aaron, what are the legal ramifications if this does not pass?
So we have already, like Mayor Johnson said about a year ago on September 6th, 2022, we did adopt the development agreement, which states that the council agrees to move forward with the MFTE program for the Deacon development.
So there are very real legal complications, meaning litigation, should this not pass.
Potentially.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am, please.
Councilmember Davis.
Yeah.
Councilmember Cortez.
Yes.
Councilmember DeRozier's.
Yes.
Mayor Johnson.
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Bowman.
Yes.
Councilmember McCoy.
Yes.
Councilmember Dingman.
Yes.
Thank you very much. I still see, well, Ian, are you still with us? Can I ask you to cut the grass? Can I ask you to cut the grass? Because it's looking a little shaggy. I'd
Absolutely.
appreciate it if you do us a favor and cut the grass right in the middle of the city. It's looking a little shaggy.
Absolutely. We'll get that taken care of right away, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, sir. It was a pleasure to have you.
Could we maybe also have battleground as 2 words in the legal document?
Yeah. Sam would love to fix that before I sign it.
Oh, okay.
Real quick, too, I would just invite and encourage anyone and all of you guys to reach out if you have any questions or suggestions or ideas as we move forward. And I appreciate your support. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you for coming.
Good night.
Administrative reports.
Nothing too much. I just wanted to give council a heads up that I'll be leaving for vacation on August 9th through the 18th. Mr. Ferrier will also be out on the 10th and the 11th. So Mr. Herseg will be acting for 2 days and then Mr. Ferrier will be back the following week. So get
Isn't
combination.
that sad, Miss Lowry?
She's going to be gone too. So it's popular time. Mark's on his own. Mark and
Wow.
acting chief.
Well, there we are, Mr. Herzig. Pleasure to have you, sir. Anything else?
That concludes administrative.
Thank you. Council communications, are there any? I do have one. A couple of months ago, the state was here in the city working on behalf of out-of-state plates and those vehicles without plates. Today, I'm in line at Onsdorf behind a truck that I have been asking the city about since November of 2021 with no plate. It is a plate of a Portland car dealer, Koenig, I believe, Konig, Kon something. I would assume that in this state, just like it is in every other state I've ever lived in, that riding on public streets without a plate is at least worth a ticket. And in Utah, they tow your vehicle if you have no plates. And so 60 days ago, the state was here. We took the courses. The city promised that they would start looking at out-of-state plates. I too have been talking about and turning in a number of out-of-state plates. I'd like to see where are we in the scheme of things, Ms. Erdman?
Lieutenant Purdue, do you have the numbers of those enforcement? I don't know if you have them handy, but I have them from Chief Ford.
Yeah.
If I can find them.
Good evening, council, and thank you, Mr. Johnson, for allowing me to talk about this. We have been working with the State Patrol. We've dedicated about 30 hours. They had 4 troopers out. We had an additional officer on overtime. So we've dedicated about 30 hours strictly to out-of-state plate enforcement. They assured us at that point that their their fraud unit would be the primary to follow up. For the next 2 weeks, they assured us that they would work every street in our city, meaning absolutely every public street, not the private streets, but every street. I've been in contact with them. Unfortunately, they have 1 trooper in Southwest Washington dedicated to that. They also have 1 dedicated assistant, and their primary approach to that, and they'll be quick to admit their primary approach is education first with follow-up. They have postcards. Unfortunately, it is the entire Southwest Washington. I was in contact. I had some correspondence with Lieutenant Tanner today concerning some training, because it is a fairly complex investigation. It's not as easy as the fraud going straight at somebody for a fraud. It's a felony level type case. So it's a fairly complex investigation that they take the lead on, and they choose to take the lead on. So from the perspective of out-of-state plates, they are our primary enforcement right now, mostly because of that difficulty in the investigation and the complexities of fraud with respect to the out-of-state plates. I'm happy to announce that as of the end of July, our parking infractions are up about 1,200% from last year, which is pretty significant. With that, parking warnings are about another 170%. More importantly, I think, is that our dispatched calls and our primary self-initiated activity is up about 55%. So we are driving down those calls for those increasing our self-initiated We have an increased number of dispatch calls and I met with the Rotary this last week. Those in Rotary tend to just love Rotary, and I can see why after speaking with that group. They're a fun group. But our person crimes are down 9%. More importantly, our property crimes are down about 20. So I think our self-initiated activity is working well. Significant increase in self-initiated, but that doesn't answer your question about where we're at with out-of-state plates. We're still working with WSP. We're waiting on some training from them for our entire department to increase that. And we're still going to push some overtime dollars out to that out-of-state specific, as well as continue with the parking emphasis money that we're continuing to push out.
Thank you, sir.
Could I ask a related question on that?
Please, sir.
Could you potentially write a ticket for no expired tags?
Absolutely, just like in Washington.
So if they don't have a license plate, they obviously have expired tags.
Potentially. I think that's where the investigative part comes in is expired tags and no tags. We would rather go into the investigation of why haven't they got license plates as opposed to, is it just expired in Oregon? If Mr. Bowman buys a car in Oregon and it's expired, we could write him the expired tag. But to Mr. Johnson's question, if it's not being registered here, we would rather go with the fraudulent registration, which is kind of WSC's. Fraudulent registration is significantly more of a penalty.
But does it preclude the other? I guess my point is, do you have to wait on the state for no license plate when you could say, you could warning shots, so to speak, and say, you don't have a current tag. This is something we can do locally. We do not have to wait on the one officer in Southwest Washington. Because it's an education piece only, that's a pretty strong educational piece. Just a thought.
Yeah, they're not entirely part and parcel of the other.
Understood, but you get in the classroom with them.
Correct. It's a matter of spotting them, and that's, unfortunately with staffing and we're, can't be everywhere. Unfortunately, we're not in the drive-through with Mr. Johnson, but
just an idea
But yeah, I completely understand, and in that particular case, it would probably be a failure to transfer the title, because my guess is that in this particular case, they haven't transferred the title in 45 days, which is actually a misdemeanor crime. So in that case, there's a lot of different avenues, but the fraud is the primary high stakes penalty that we would prefer and work on the state with. They're doing about 500 warnings a day in Southwest Washington, and they monitor that. They have an assistant that helps send out postcards, and I think that our officer in the 5 hours that we worked the primary emphasis with the State Patrol did 38 warnings himself. And I can't speak to what WSP did because I couldn't get their stats.
Yeah, it looks like from Chief Fort, when there was 165 cards posted total for the out-of-state plate enforcement day.
To me, and I've been complaining about out-of-state plates since I got here 12 years ago. And we have to keep faith with those people, my neighbors, our neighbors, who are out there doing the right thing. And the only way to do that is for the city and their enforcement arm to do it. And it's irritating. Just in my little neighborhood, there's 6 out-of-state plates and 3 vehicles with no plates. And so it's hard for my neighbors and I have a partially electric car that I pay an extra $7,500 a year on just because it uses electricity. So I pay $200 for that car. And my neighbor are rolling with Oregon and rolling with California and rolling with North Carolina. And it is not fair. And it's hard to explain to folks that the city and the state, really, the state's overwhelmed. I get that. But the city doesn't seem interested in it. That's my own.
Mr. Mayor, if I may.
Yes,
real
sir,
quick.
please.
The stats that Acting Chief Purdue was talking about in totality, they're quite impressive. And I thank you for that. I think our men and women in our police force deserve the bulk of the credit for achieving that and continuing to achieve that. But also too, let's also not lose sight that it was because of this council giving them those extra resources and making sure they're fully funded and looking for ways to ensure that they're fully funded.
So what I'm getting at is perhaps it might be time that maybe the city or the mayor or a combination of the two, maybe write a letter to the governor's office asking for more resources when it comes to perhaps an additional state trooper to be involved in out-of-state plates. If there's only one right now,
The mayors of Clark County
are they working on that?
have done it.
Okay, thank you for that.
Since one of them is a state trooper.
Do we still have the vehicle with the plate reader?
No, because of the difficulties in really capturing good data with it, we terminated that contract because it was a fairly expensive contract for what we were yielding from it. It's just that the technology really wasn't as efficient as we had hoped. I think there's better options out there for plate readers, but the one we had just wasn't of the quality that was giving us the details we wanted.
Well, I think one thing that I mean, neighbors always seem to want someone else to do their job, you know, instead of going talking as a neighbor. But one of the things I actually got audited by the state over someone calling in and reporting that my van was an out-of-state plated van, and it was Western States Fire Protection, not Western States Fire Equipment. And alphabetically, I came up before protection, so they started an audit with me and said, we already started it, we're gonna finish it. But
Since we're here.
that was a complaint filed by just a citizen to the state auditor's office saying, hey, these are out-of-state plated vehicles. And they followed up on it themselves and proceeded to do an audit. So that's probably more so from a business standpoint than it is a personal standpoint. But I know that there's other avenues for people to report those than just to us. If they're reporting to the state patrol, those type of things might get a little bit further than us having to do it all.
I think I saw the mayor walking by your house around that time.
Yes, yeah.
I do walk by.
Yeah, when they said it was a white van, I'm like, I don't even own a white van, so yeah.
Then I would ask the city, perhaps the police department can do just a little research on a reader that might fit their bill. And if so, then bring back some sort of cost estimate on that and see if we can find the city council's willingness to purchase that.
Could you take a look at, and I don't know if we can do it or not, but Moses Lake, and Lieutenant, I was talking to you about this earlier this week. Moses Lake did it, and they put in 20, I think it was 20 cameras. Is what they did throughout the city. And it will read license plates. It will let you know if it's a silver alert, amber alert, stolen vehicle, and it will give the police the direction they're moving. But if there's an opportunity to do something like that where we can recognize the same vehicle over, like if it does just out of state, if there's a way to capture out of state plates, so we see the same vehicle every day for 60 days, 90 days, then maybe that's something where we can, you know, and it isn't taking up an officer doing it, it's a camera system doing it. And I think they got a $50,000 grant is what it costs to do that for them. So if that's a possibility.
Anything else, anyone?
I would just add, sir, that.
Yes, sir.
The difficulty in the enforcement is, especially with the plate readers, is we have a lot of businesses doing business from Oregon in our city. And getting those stats, pulling those stats accurately is a challenge in and of itself. So certainly there's a problem. Certainly there's a high number of them. I would just like to assure you that we're working with WSP on this situation. We're trying to get more training for our officers to go after a little bit of the bigger fish rather than just the small bait, if you will. So
ain't nothing all easy. I figured that out. Next meeting is Monday, August 21st, 2 weeks from tonight. Study session begins at 6. And of course, the regular meeting is always,
It's a budget committee, not a study session.
Okay, I'm just reading what's here.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
That's okay. So 2 weeks from tonight, the study session is canceled and the budget committee will meet. And then the regular meeting starts at 7 as always. We'll see you then.